Уважаемые дамы и господа, уважаемые коллеги, начинаем.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, let us begin our session. My name is Natalia Salienko. I'm a professor at the Moscow School for Business, and I'm also director of the Center for Family Business. And we are having here Dmitry, who is my partner and my colleague. So he is a family business owner. He has DBA degrees, actually 2 DBA degrees at the Academy for and he is the chairman of the board of directors, company Gradezh. So I hope that you will find this talk very interesting, and I'm going to give the floor to our guests. We are having Olga Nesterova here, who is the director of Ussadьба restaurant and boutique hotel Familia. And Olga will tell us more about her business herself. We have Guy Poskitt, who is managing director, and he manages family business, MH Poskitt. We are having Igor Sagenbaev. He's the president of Association of Family Business in Russia. We need him very much because we are going to speak about restoring old traditions of family entrepreneurship. We are also having Boris and Eduard Ostrobrod, and they represent 2 generations of family entrepreneurship and family business. They were born in Russia, but they live in Israel. It's a very interesting business, and you probably know the company Sela, and that's the company that they own. You probably visited this company, and maybe some of you still use their services. We understand that family business and family itself is a fantastic resource that are markers, and they can indicate the rates of economic growth. We know that family is something that supports us, and business supports us as well. So it's a great resource if you have it, because it can be a basis or a pillar that helps you to maintain your family traditions. If we take a look at the international experience, we can say that about 80% of all small and medium enterprises belong to family enterprises. In Russia, we also understand that it's a family business, but it has not been yet regulated by the legislation. And we can see by seeing this audience that it's very interesting. And as CIS countries follow this, and some amendments have been introduced to their legislation. For example, in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, Mr. Nazarbayev thinks that it's very important to focus on family-run business, and they're going to support it. So let us start. I'm going to outline the questions that we're going to talk about, and I'm going to keep track of times, and I ask all our speakers to stay within time limits. So we are going to speak about building family business and family enterprises. We're going to talk about involving children in the family business. then issues related to succession and inheritance of family business, because of course it's important to have sustainable family business. And the last one is how to build a successful business and maintain a good relationship within the family. Before I give the floor to Ostrobrod and I'd love to ask this question for all speakers, but if Boris and Eduard can answer them, that would be a great introduction. So I'd love to get answers to the following questions. What are the markers of family entrepreneurship and family business? What do you think is a family-run business, and what role does it have in your life? What does it mean for your family? And what helped you to be successful? So I actually talked to Boris, and I guess you can answer all of these questions. You're welcome, Boris. Well, I won't be able to answer all the questions, but I'll try. Dear guests, I'm very happy to share my views and ideas. I don't want to talk about Sela because you can find all the information about this company in the internet. I'd love to tell you more about our family business, and that's why I brought my son. And so I want to share you my ideas, and Eduard will share his ideas, and then maybe we'll have some discussion. Do you agree? I have one question for the audience. Who has family business? Can you raise your hands? So it means that we'll have an interesting discussion. So let's start. I have prepared a small presentation with only 4 slides. All truth about family companies. But actually, I'm going to talk about my company. I was thinking of showing you different cases from all over the world, but then I decided to focus only on the cases from this country. And if you recognize some of them, we'll be able to exchange our opinions. So this is my understanding on family companies. It means that the one family owns the major package of shares. The family members manage the companies, and business is inherited. It's handed over from generation to generation. These are the key factors. And I just wanted to start with this to give you understanding of how we understand family business. So like Natalia said, family business is the pillar for the business, and this is the building block for any business. 37% of the largest companies in world are family-run companies. In Japan, it's 99%. In European Union, 70%. So it means that family-run business is the core of the world economy, and it means that it's going to affect our life. So, what advantages does family business have? First of all, family values in the company. For example, if we speak about public company, of course, the values that they share is to expand business, to get some profits, and other things. But if we speak about family business, it's very important to give support, to defend the weaker people. So it's very important to cultivate the family values. And it's good to have synergy between business qualities and personal qualities and values. And company success can be a strong motivating factors and not just have a personal career or just making money. And another thing which is very important is loyalty. Headhunter agencies usually chase your staff members, but fortunately, if we speak about family business, these headhunting companies have little chance to win your family member. So that was something that's good about family business. Now speaking about the problems, only 30% of family companies in the world continue their business in the next generation. So, and there are some reasons for that. The main problem is that the founder does not prepare the ground to hand over the management. These people think of their authority, about their status, and he focuses on himself very much. Then the next thing is that innovations are not introduced for many years. Very often, Edward used to come to me and said, "Father, we should do this and that. We should restructure this. We should fire those people." But I would say, "Oh, why are you worrying so much? Our business is expanding. We open more shops." But Edward says, "No, we have to do this because that's what your competitors do." So we would have this very long argument, and I didn't reform many things. I didn't follow his advice. But this is very important. You have to introduce innovations. Then the relationships are not quite clear. It's not quite clear who is subordinate and who is on the top. So who should obey to whom? Or, for example, if you have a new member of the family, because sons have wives, and it's very important to structure these relationships, and this can become a mine that can undermine a business. And besides that, there's no clear distribution of responsibilities, because everybody is responsible for everything. Now the question is, what can we do? So I'm not going to say that I have everything and I'm not a perfect example, but I just understood with my heart what's important to do. First of all, it's important to develop your family declaration, like 10 commandments, which going to say what we can do, what we cannot do. Like we cannot kill, we cannot steal, etc. In Israel, there was a dispute with the family, and they involved some lawyers because they couldn't settle the dispute, and the girl brought this note from her grandmother when she started this business, and it said what's the way how to behave in difficult situations. So that piece of paper was very important when the final decisions were made. And then it's very important to get together, to have, so to say, family council, not just to celebrate some holidays, but to agree on certain things, maybe even to sign some minutes. It has very important meaning. Then every 5 years, it's important to transform the companies, and Edward is going to tell you more how he does it. But I can tell you that any company develops, follows a certain trajectory, goes up, has ups and downs, because there is some development stage, then can reach certain peaks, and then it can go down. Then the next generation should make some transformations in order to update and have another rise. And it's probably true about any kind of company. Even with when we speak about the relationships with your wife, you should renovate this relationship every day. You should surprise your wife. You should do something. You should make her fall in love with you again. Can you respond to this? And you don't have to wait for 5 years. You can do it more frequently. So it means that the company requires innovation.
It's important to prepare the company to transfer it to the heirs. This, the founder of the business should think about it. You know Bhutan, the state of Bhutan. There are few tourists, and the king transferred his power to his son when he was 35. And he wanted his son to start managing the state, though the father was quite young. The principle is you should prepare replacement. Then you should prepare the heirs to accept the management. These are two different things, because the one who inherits the company should also be prepared for it. So it is important for them. They need to feel that they occupy this position not accidentally, not because their father was tough, but even if they were interviewed together with other people, they would occupy this position anyway, based on their quality. If the heir understands it, if you implement it into his consciousness, it is very important. Everybody understand what transparent relations in the family means. Shall I say a few words? Transparent relations in the family. There are members of the family who work in the business. Other relatives could be doctors or musicians. They should understand what they get from family business. What children get, what grandchildren get, then they won't challenge it, because this was accepted long ago like a constitution. It's important to attract independent specialists to control the situation. They could be different, or the members of the family business can have a narrow view of the situation, so there should be someone who could objectively participate in the work of the family business. And the last thing is family office. The office that manages family capital. It's a complicated subject, and if you have this question about managing family business, there are companies that have 10 businesses, and you need to manage everything. For that, you have family office. I'm almost finished. This bullet has dropped out. It is very important. Family business, Natalia mentioned it. Family business is family and business. That's the basis. I would say love and business. It is important to preserve both in our lives, love and business. And it is quite complicated. And our case is as follows. At our home, Edward, who likes innovations. I would like to visit all the panels. So Edward brought a manager and said, Dear family, we sometimes quarrel. This is a high-class manager and he will control us. So we see that the business is, we had conflicts with the manager. Edward said that he was good. We said that he was bad. We made a decision which was quite important for us later, not to destroy the family. We said goodbye to him. However, Edward has good relations with him, and we decided that all the family relations will be taken by the majority. My daughter is an art director, and Edward is a vice president. So they agreed that if some person or candidate whom they want to hire does not suit at least one member of the family, he is not hired. This removes all the problems. Well, it's a kind of veto. So when you are engaged in family business, you should also think about love. But of course, you will need money too. Now let's listen to the son of the family company, and then we'll ask questions. Good morning. I'm Edward. I am the second generation, and all these experiments were made on me. I have a lot of experience to share, a lot of situations that we tried, tests and errors. I'm almost 35, but thank you for the compliment. The new generation is growing, and I would like, can you show the presentation? I would like to tell you about a few basic things that I experienced myself, some situations. And if you don't know about them, maybe my recommendations will be useful. How do we separate family and work? Very often we argue in our family when I ask, are you speaking now as a company shareholder or as a manager? Because the goals are totally different. The manager is interested in the results of the company, profit, everything that makes company successful. The shareholder may have other views. There can be some staff with whom he started business and who are no longer effective. However, they are ineffective now. However, he can't say goodbye to them because it will be like a treachery. There are cases when it is important to understand whether you are a shareholder and you conduct negotiations at the meeting of shareholders. If you are a manager, you should protect the interests of the company, not your own interests. If you come to an agreement about it on the shore, in any of your meetings, the person will understand that he is wrong. But when you proved to your relative or member of the family that he is wrong and he has agreed to your opinion, making a decision is much better than a conflict. A few words about how it all started. Boris is my father, and he started developing the company in the 90s. In the post-Soviet time, goods were brought from China in containers, and we bought something that China did not use itself. I didn't work at the company at that time because I was too small. As I was growing, I was growing in Israel, and father often went to Russia, and I couldn't participate in family management. I wanted independence, and I wanted my own money. I went to work at a restaurant as a waiter. The restaurant owner did not have any relations with me. I stayed there for 2 years. And the manager did not have any sentiments about me. I just worked and I earned money. After that, at 18, I joined the army, Israel army. I stayed there for 2 years. No family, no privileges. Everything is strictly according to the rules. After the army, when I started working in the family business, I had some pattern in my head about relations, how I should behave as a subordinate if the manager is my father. The next topic is segregation of powers. You should discuss it on the show. What questions I should discuss with my father and what decisions I can make myself. Something above $5,000 or $10,000 should be approved by my father. If I haven't had it approved with father or other members, it means that I have broken the rules. And if I'm criticized for that, it means it was my fault. Fulfilling the contract. If you have agreed about something, but in fact the situation changed, and if I don't act in a different way, compliance with the agreement will result in a wrong business decision. In this case, I shouldn't change the agreement myself, and if I see this problem, I should invite everyone and say that I am going to change the agreement. Even if I change the agreement and I am right, I shouldn't have done it. As to the accord, our company has agreed that at the stage of interview, we'll look at the heads, medium and top management, and if somebody in our family does not like someone, we don't hire him. There is a danger in family business, is a division into so-called camps. This is your employee, this is my employee. If you have camps in your business, this is the beginning of the end. You should eliminate all the sources that make you quarrel. So at the stage of the interview, you should agree about it. And if you already have such employees, I suggest that you think. Of course, you shouldn't make any risky movements. However, this can result to conflicts in the family. Some members of the family may even leave the business and quarrel with each other. I don't think this is the wise thing to do. I would like to thank all of you, and I hope that my advice has been useful. I'll be happy to answer your questions if you have any, and if the moderator permits. Dear colleagues, I would like all of you to remember yesterday's morning session in Hall A. Mr. Hoffman said 3 main things. I recorded them. They're well known. This is something that can create synergy. Yesterday, Mr. Hoffman said, business changes the world, and family business changes the world for the better. Then he said that the most expensive resource of a person is his time. So in family business, the father, the founder of the family, invests the most precious thing in the most precious assets he has. So what are the key differences of family business from non-family business? And number 2, I hope that you all will support it. We are all interested in how the father managed to inspire his son to be his follower. And probably the grandson will also be continue this business. Maybe, and this will be a dynasty. Okay. I think that a person can inspire or convince someone if he can do it himself. It's one thing to give instructions. If you can do something yourself, you have more authority and you can manage or modify your thoughts better so that you could implement them. I will tell you one short story. I worked in the Lenin Stadium as chief engineer. A drunk plumber came up to me and said that he couldn't remove the valve because the screws were rusty and are not going to have any water. I said that if I remove it within 5 minutes, he will be penalized. I cut the screws and threw this bolt to him, and after that my authority was very strong. So it's important to do something yourself. When your child sees it, he believes you. Sometimes he believes you because you are the father, but not 100%. And if you show him that you can do it, then he will believe you much more. The only battle I can't win is the battle with my own child. So first you should inspire your child, and then you should create in him a feeling that the world can't exist without him. When we started working with clothes, we decided we needed a catalog, and we needed models, and we needed money. Who were in the catalog? My son and my daughter. I still have it. One day I will show it to you. So personal experience, creation of the feeling that it is the goal, why he came into the world. How can you do it? Forming events through thoughts. It is an esoteric approach, and you understand what it means. It's a very popular approach now. The previous panel, I remember I said that it is not the right time. I'll take it tomorrow. However, this might be wrong because tomorrow this may never happen. You're speaking of your success and your children, and what role do women play in your company? My wife, Irina, worked in business for 20 years. She's a doctor. She passed an exam in Israel. It's a good career and a good salary, and she gave up her career. Actually, she graduated from the first medical institute with honors. It is quite a difficult, a serious achievement. She knows that it's difficult to make money, and there are no areas where it is easy. So she started working with computer, and she worked with me for 20 years. Now we decided that a woman should take care of her family and keep up her beauty and youth. So my daughter is an art director.
She went to study at the Design Institute to Mukina art school in St. Petersburg. So she studied there for 5 years and then began working. So now she is an art director, but she now is getting her MBA in order to be able to manage things. Are there any questions from the audience? Can you introduce yourself first? My name is Igor. I was very interested in the thoughts that you shared and your advice that you, when you invite some external consultants to your family business to control the process, what kind of people are they? Are they economists, are they lawyers, auditors, or are they just businessmen? What kind of people are they? And the second thing is the agreements that you make inside your family. How do you capture all these agreements? Do you have some bill on the rights, or do you sign some act? How are you going to observe these rules? Do you get together then and try to see what you have achieved, whether you discuss things if you do not observe some principles of your agreements? Well, thank you very much for your question, first of all. I really liked your question because it's a very important question. Whether there's some system that we follow or we do it from time to time on an ad hoc basis. I can tell you that it's not system-based process. I'd love to make it more systematic because my son got married, my daughter is going to get married in September, and it would be very good if you can build a proper system. Then the second question related to consultants. Consultants are a great thing, but personally I have some misgivings with regard to them. And maybe Eduard will tell you more about the control mechanisms. I think consultants can be very useful, but you shouldn't listen to every single thing that they say because they can tell you a lot of things. So you should just filter all this information and use only important things that you heard. We involve such specialists when we want to change something because we want to use their life experience to get their expert views to see what kind of impact it can have in the future. For example, if we want to introduce some new ERP problem, we invite an IT consultant. If we want to have a new design for our shop, we invite a company that specializes in architectural solutions. Now speaking about regulations. We are moving into this direction. We're trying to solve all the issues as needed. And maybe you know that in a large company, there's a very long way before they make a decision. It might take a month before the final decision is made. Whereas all I have to do is just to make a phone call to my mom, to my father and my sister, and then send an email and copy it to all the parties. So this can be a competitive advantage. For example, if we want to get a new shop and we can, and then we see our competitors, and sometimes it takes them 2 months to make all the agreements, and we can do it much faster depending on the data that we have to collect, and then just sign the leasing agreement. And that's the way it works, and that's another competitive advantage that we have as a business. The consultants for small business and the consultants for large business are very different. You can sometimes involve coaches. So it's better to work with small companies and describe the relations in a contract. My name is Alexey Moskvich. I'm a business broker. Do you have grandchildren? Well, it doesn't really matter whether you have them or not. So do you have them? But you're going to have them because your son is married and your daughter is going to get married. So the first generation creates business, the second generation maintains it, and the third destroys it. Are you ready for that? But I can remember Mexican saying, they say the first generation accumulates, the second spends, and the third generation are just poor people. So the second generation, the most dangerous stage. Thank you very much for all the questions. But we have some other speakers here, very interesting cases. Maybe we'll put off your questions until later. Now let me introduce Guy Poskitt, who is managing director, and he will tell us about his family business, because we are very interested in international experience. You're welcome, Guy.
Sorry, apologise. Good afternoon. My business is different because we're a farming business and a growing business, which means that we actually carry a lot of asset in terms of the land, but I think we're sort of keepers of the land for a generation rather than for my length of term in the business. It's interesting when we say about in 3 generations. We call it in the UK rags to riches and back again in 3 generations, and it's important that we get the right people there. I think really the key thing in my business is to make sure that I've got the right people in my business as well as my family, because they don't want to just see my family there, they want to see their future in the business, and they want to make sure that they've got job security. If you look at my business at the moment, we employ about 250 people, and my sons are 12 and 14 years old. So I have a big gap, and I've got to make sure that I've brought people who can run the business, who can give my customers confidence in our business until the next generation comes along, and also give them job security. Because, of course, unfortunately, in a family business, if you're not family, you're probably never going to get to the top of the tree. And that's why we've got to really try and keep those people on board. So that's a key thing. The second thing is, you should never push your family into the family business because they're bred into it, you know. You have a long life in front of you doing something you don't want to do. And I'm a very strong believer that if my sons want to come into the business, I will give them all the opportunities. But if they don't, I'll let them go and do something else. However, I will still carry on in a sort of a chairman's role whilst I've got a good middle management, because I owe it to those people. Those people have helped me build my business to where I am today. One other problem we've got in the UK, which I don't really know how the law stands in Russia, is of course tax and inheritance, and we've got a plan for that to make sure that should somebody sadly die or disappear, that there's not a huge tax bill that totally destroys the structure of the business. So we need to plan for that, and that's very, very important, because unfortunately death generally comes at a time you don't expect it, and you need to make sure that you plan for that. Training it's interesting that the gentleman at the end, he's got his son's obviously very involved in the business. But you need to get them on the shop floor and bring them up a little bit through the business. I think it's wrong to bring them in at the top of the business, and it's wrong for you people. I know I keep going on about you people, but my business is only as good as the people I've got working for me. And it's, although I know they'll probably accelerate through the business quite quickly, I think it's important that they understand how it works fundamentally, right down to shop floor, manufacture, possibly even, a classic way in the UK will be to send your sons off to probably work for one of your competitors and actually understand how they work, but also get them to understand respect and understand how it is to work in a family business when you aren't family, and then you will understand how people, when they work for you, what they're expecting from you. Thank you.
Future to what you said, I started from the beginning. When I was after the army, I started my work as a delivery boy, going to the post office and sending parcels and buying all the merchandise for the office. So I totally agree with what you said.
Thank you.
Спасибо, коллеги. Может быть, у кого-то из зала есть
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the audience?
Well, that's a fairly large amount of employees for a family business. But you said that if I were to come into your company as an employee, that would be one of the biggest concerns for me would be corporate growth. If there's no corporate growth, if you cannot guarantee corporate growth within your company, since you take the top of the ladder, how do you address that issue? How do you motivate people to stay within your company that know that they will not be able to grow? Thank you.
I think you don't take your foot off the gas. You know, you never ever say enough's enough, and you continue to look for opportunities, and then you've got to bring people in to drive those opportunities. You know, I'm as hungry now as I was the day I took running. I've run the business for 30 years, and I'm still hungry for opportunities. If my staff or my colleagues see that we're going a bit flat, they too lose interest and they start and look elsewhere. So I think we've got to continually look for opportunities. But as you get older, you don't have as much fire. And I will challenge anybody that as you get older, you start to lose the fire. So therefore, you know, I had a visit from one of my major customers, and he said to me, "You've got a great business, there's just one problem." And I said, "What was that?" And he said, "You, because too much of this business sits with you." And from that day, I've spent a lot of time bringing people in to help me run the business, but be involved in the running the business and let them run the business. You know, don't look around. I'm away this week in Russia. I'm away often on business, and of course, like us all, we're in touch because we love it. But you've got to let them get on with it. It's quite interesting about, you know, work and a family business. Well, if you really enjoy your family business, it isn't a job, it's your life, and that's the key to driving it forward. Is you've got to, you know, it's got to be passionate about what you do.
Guy, you've mentioned that you have, is that two sons, right? 12-year-old and 14-year-old. Have you started involving them already in your business at all?
Well, one of them, I can already tell that one of them's quite interested and one isn't. So yes, I have. You know, I'm a farmer at heart. I'm a farmer. So I took both my sons out on the farm, and I take them around the factory. And one of my sons had his school friend over at the weekend, and I took him in the factory and showed the processing the products. But you've got to just be careful that you don't push it down the throat too much. The little boys, you know, they want to enjoy life, they want to play football, and they want to do normal things. So I think it's important to get the balance.
One more question. If you had a chance to do something differently, if you rewind back 20 years or 30 odd years when you started your business, what would you have done differently, given the chance?
I'd have borrowed more money and expanded, but I hadn't got the confidence to do that. And I think in building a family business, the biggest challenge is that first hurdle, because you've got nothing, you've got very little money, and if it goes wrong, you're sunk. Okay.
Спасибо. Задавайте свой вопрос, задавайте.
Да, у меня был вопрос к Борису Михайловичу, но теперь и Гаю его тоже задам.
I had a question for Boris, but I'm gonna ask Guy this question. So I'm the only owner of business. I have my son, and during the last 12 years, I worked with managers and hired employees. How can I maintain the balance, not to offend my managers, but also give an opportunity to my brothers and to my son, so that they could fully realize their potential? If I promote my relatives, I will demotivate my managers that sacrifice their health and time. So I feel some dilemma here. What can you recommend? My name is Botkin Andrei, and I represent the construction company.
Well, naturally, your son is your son, and you're never going to change that. And we know we have a saying, blood is thicker than water, and you never will change that. However, your son has got to earn the respect. You know, he's got to deliver. Got to be given challenges like the rest of your team. and deliver. And I'm afraid if it doesn't deliver, possibly you might have to look for him in a lesser role within the business. If you bring somebody up through the business that doesn't deliver, the rest of your team will quite rightly become demotivated, and then they will leave you. They will go and look for somebody else, and then the whole thing will start to collapse. So I think the thing is you've got to prove yourself. Easy said than done.
У меня маленький комментарий.
I have a short comment. Psychology says that maybe it's good that one person is doing business and the other one is not doing it. Because if we speak about control of business, there should be just one leader. Of course, others can participate in this. In the current situation here in Russia, guys' experience is very important because farming enterprises are a promising area for Russia. So thank you very much, Guy, because it encourages us to do more and organize more farm businesses. Are there any other questions? Hello, my name is Grigory Bayer, and I'm from Bauman University. I have a question for all panelists. We had Raisa Dumina talk last week. She is the manager of the biggest meat processing enterprise, and this is also a family-run business. So they produce everything as if like they would do for themselves. So it's a high-quality product, and she said that I always made my children work, and that's why he's very successful. And do you agree with this? Let's take turn to answer this question. So, of course, we produce 25 million items. And I can't check every single item to see whether it's high quality. But of course, it's important to set up the department for quality control. And of course, you should do your best. You should produce as if you would produce for yourself. And speaking about making somebody work, it depends. Well, there's always a conflict between fathers and children. I think that no matter what we speak about, whether it's a T-shirt or meat, you should always do it as if you do it for yourself. And so you should do it for people like you would do it for yourself. And there are the conditions of sufficient. There's a notion of sufficient condition and necessary condition. So, of course, you have to do your work as best as possible. Speaking about making somebody do something. Sometimes it's not bad. For example, my daughter came to Israel when she was 3 years old. Of course, she didn't want to write and study Russian. So I felt resistance from her. But it's very important to instill the thought that you have to create all through your life, no matter what you do, whether you do the interior design or play violin. You should create different things. You shouldn't just live without any purpose. So if you can if you can explain this to your children, how important it is to create different things, then you would be successful. I would say that one of the key differences between family and non-family business is related to horizon of planning. We did a research in Russia, and we got some interesting figures. Half of the respondents that were family owners were ready to sell their business within 7 years if the price was good. But if the owner of the business creates his business, he wants to make sure that his grandchildren are proud of the business. So answering your question with regard to forcing somebody to do something, I think that the father should be a leader, should be an authority, and children sometimes want their fathers to show them some things, because we have some examples when heirs to big business started from the very bottom, and the business owner would say that if you want to inherit my big empire, please start at the very bottom and show me what you can do, and then we'll see what happens. It's true that Dmitry has 3 children, so he has a very he has an appropriate approach. Now let me introduce Olga, who has a boutique hotel and restaurant, and she works in Tolyatti.
She has been accumulating knowledge for many years, and she got an education. She worked at the same time, and she continues learning. She also is a teacher, and she will tell you more about herself. And then this all brought her to family business. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for this introduction. I live in a region, and my colleagues told you a lot about it. We have a small company of 30 people, a hotel and a restaurant. All these principles can be applied. My parents created this business using money from another company. All this is connected with cars. At that time, we didn't know how to manage it. 8 years ago, if you had money, it was natural that you open a restaurant, especially in Tolyatti. 3 years after it was open, I decided that I liked it. And I started working, and I began learning in this sphere. It's a very important moment for family business, is the family itself, how it was developing, how traditions were transmitted. It's one thing when the husband and the wife open something together, and it's another thing when you have a grandfather and a big family of several generations that gets together every weekend, and they have family principles. And you can build your business on these principles. You do it as well as if you were doing it for yourself. This empathy is very important. We work in the sphere of service, and we serve our guests as well as we would serve our relatives. So they become part of our family and maintain our traditions. Another important aspect is professionalism of all the members of the family working in the business, and their initial involvement. I don't have children yet, however, I have a niece who comes to our restaurant. She also brings her friends there. She shows our kitchen to them. She understands this story and is prepared to develop it. It's another thing that you need to do to be able to do something with your hands. It is not just being placed on the throne. I used to work as a waiter myself and as a bartender too. It's important to understand how your staff understands the system. Any person should be equipped with something based on his or her profile. Like in Edward and Boris's examples. Well, my parents are engineers too. Sometimes I could hear that you don't understand anything about it, don't touch it. I said, yes, but I understand management and marketing. You have a big company and we have a small company. However, the problems are the same. A family is more important than business or money, because these are the people that you have. And well, if sometimes decisions are made without taking into account the feelings of your relatives, I think you should always take decisions in favor of your family. There are no definitions or explanations in the law. However, we need to work at it. I have a question about women. What is the role of a lady in managing family business or management leadership? Are there any gender differences in family business? A woman is more emotional, and she sometimes takes emotional decisions, which is not too bad, by the way. Nobody's complaining. Against the background of emotions, she may fail to understand certain things. In the family, a wise woman would never say what is the right thing to do. She creates conditions for the man to understand it. In this sense, in the family business, it is necessary to consult the son and the daughter. Yes, it's true. Like in a family, the woman should be wise. What are the examples, global examples, that inspire you? Richard Mansfield and his Virgin Company. He is a very inspiring person himself. He lives this life in a very interesting way. It is not only devoted to business. Do we have any questions from the audience? You were correct in mentioning that family business is conducted all over the world and it is quite popular. What about Russia? Is there any support given legislatively? For example, adverse possession and or tax conflict with tax authorities. What perspectives or concept does Russia have in this area? How can it be developed, family protection? And then now I would like to introduce Igor Sagenbaev, who will start answering this question. I'm Igor Sagenbaev. I was a little late, and I think I will be in a position to answer this question because I'm in the expert council of the State Duma. Legal support of a family company. There is no such subject of business activities as family company at present, no. So we can't speak of protecting it. The closest is a farm. However, there are no family companies in Russia, and everything is regulated by general laws. We started discussing me, and it's both easy or difficult to discuss me. I will just say a little negative things. Who has a family company of their own? Half the audience did not raise their hands. So maybe you are planning to start a family business. And I want you to expect difficulties. And exactly what difficulties should you expect in the family business? There are advantages and disadvantages in family business, like in any business. You should place them on different sides of the balance. What are the advantages? It is important to understand what type of companies we are discussing. There are big companies when the family is the owner and the company is managed by other people. Such companies have a history. And there are small companies or those who have just started their business. In these companies, laws are different and people begin their business to cut the costs. You should understand that a family company has a break-even point which is close to survival point. Besides, currently, when we have a crisis, this aspect is very important. Secondly, another advantage of the family company is the fact that people in such a company, two brothers or man and wife, can have unlimited working day because employees want more money for overwork. Family members can work many hours a day. Another advantage is the ability to cut the costs. Disadvantage is a lack of professionalism. Sometimes the same member of the family combines several jobs. The wife can be an accountant and also play other roles. And at a certain point, this comes into conflict, cutting the costs and lack of professionalism. I've seen many companies that were quite successful as startups, but a year or two later they failed. There are a lot of such companies. They are quite successful, and in a year they are out of business. Another important aspect of a family company, you can take advantage of the trust, personal trust. It's good when you trust your company. However, sometimes these personal relations may affect the business tragically. Generally, in Russia, at this stage, we have this problem. We have discussed business consultants and whom you hire, who are they, lawyers. In foreign countries have a long history of family companies. They not only provide consultations, but also take into account close relations between the members of the family. In addition to certain development of business, there is a family aspect which is stronger than everything else. They take into account these specifics and provide consultations on a different level. You need to remember about the system for preparing hairs. It is quite developed in foreign countries. Natalia Salienko invited Alan Crosby, a media magnate from Ireland. He was educated by joining an American company, and he he was supposed to get practical experience. Now, business can be inherited. However, these issues are not regulated. In fact, this is a serious issue. Very often when managers are hired, invited, cases of adverse possession are well known. For example, the son does not have enough experience, and the manager tries cheating him. Sometimes these attempts can be successful. Well, that's it in a nutshell. Maybe I have missed something. I haven't seen any expert evaluations in this in our media. What is the share of family business in our economy? I can't tell you. I wouldn't know. I'm a practical worker, and I know more about confectionery. I don't really agree with the statement that products should be made the way you do it for yourself. If I were making cakes for myself, I would probably need 2 chairs to sit on. As to GDP, I don't know what part of GDP is formed by family businesses. PricewaterhouseCoopers conducted a study last year, and the question was the owners of family business in different countries. Do they agree with the fact that the government recognizes the great role of family business in the economy? In all the developed countries, small business and family business, Boris told us that 37 well-known companies are family companies. And there's an interesting aspect that the respondents surveyed by PricewaterhouseCoopers, they gave a very interesting results. Western Europe -9%, Eastern Europe -53%, Russia -43%. It is the difference between the share of those who agree and the share of those who do not agree. Switzerland was the leader, 25%. This percentage makes you think, and we are quite inspired by it. And we can see that in the neighboring countries, laws are adopted to support family business. I would like you to comment on that, because you are part of the expert council. What are the legislators' intentions, and what steps are made to provide systemic support to this sector, and what are the prospects, since our country is the member of WTO? Family business are not going to be registered in the next 3 to 4 years. Regulators don't think that it is necessary. globally there is a trend for simplifying the registration of business units. However, in Uzbekistan last year, a law was adopted, and now family companies are quite official. And there are a lot of examples of family businesses with all the calculations. Our priority is now social entrepreneurship. If you say social, it means that this is good. In family companies, well, we do not expect any changes in the registration. Regulators say that amendments are necessary in the tax code and the civil code, and nobody is interested in that. More questions? Please introduce yourselves. I'm Larisa Fedorova. I also have a family company, and I would like to ask a question to Igor Sagenbaev about the development of family business in Russia. What are the obstacles in the development of family entrepreneurship in Russia? What are the bright examples that support this development? A good example of family business is the family of Lushkov and Baturina. On the level of education, specific members, I think it's lack of education, information, and there are 4 stages in the development of a family company. They're somewhat different from corporate business, and there are 4 critical moments that can be seen in any family company. For example, the first crisis is involving children in business. No, the first one is transferring the authority. The founder, it's difficult for the founder to transfer his powers to a third parties, including his children. Step by step, this should be done very slowly.
So if we have a family company, it often happens spontaneously when people just start work and then involve their family members. So it's very important to have some minimal knowledge and to understand how to solve problems. And that's why MIRBIS Institute, represented by Natalia, developed a special program. Natalia, you said that you developed this program or a training course related to family business. So you can ask Natalia and you can take the course at the institution called MIRBIS. That's the most important thing. You can't stop entrepreneur with some bans or prohibitions. An entrepreneur is a free spirit, and if I think about Italian mafia and other things, they are all family clans. Yes, family clans. And actually, that's another example of successful family company. Good afternoon. My name is Daler Albayev. My question is for you. I'm a successor to a small business from my father. My father produces chocolate based on fructose. So I was a successor to this business for a long time, and they prepared me to run the business for a long time, even though I didn't really want to run this business because I have my own plans. So I have a brother now, and my youngest brother is 8 months old. So he was born very recently. So I don't plan that I would just begin to run this business. I'm in construction business. I do installation works. And I now get education in finances. So what should I do? What advice could you give me? Did you say it was a small company, or what's the turnover of the company? Up to 10 million. So your father was a founder. Yes, he's about 50 years old. So he's quite young. Who can answer? Don't do anything. That's my answer. Because sometimes it's a good solution. Just wait a little bit to see how it works. You should solve the problems as they come. If you don't want to do chocolate, then you don't have to do it. Maybe it's too early to panic. Maybe that younger son will be happy to do this. Can I also add something? We were speaking. You touched upon the role of women. The most important thing. Are you still with us? The most important is not to make decisions emotionally. It was a long process for me to learn to do this. When you make emotional decisions, usually they are wrong decisions. So just relax, think about something else. Don't mix up the business with your emotions. Whenever you mix it up, it doesn't work. The most important thing is to concentrate when you start business, whereas when you expand business, and that's what I guess you now go through, is a stage of diversification. Maybe you should see if there's an opportunity for children to do some related services. Can you offer something else? Because this might be a way out. There's no black and white. Like Leo Tolstoy said that all happy families are similar in their happiness, but all unhappy families are unhappy in different ways. Maybe you should talk to a coach, consult with a coach, and pull out some problem. I think you just can't accept the situation. You should really take a break and work with a coach. And then you'll answer your question yourself. Young man, I can tell you that your parents' life is their life. They set up this business, but your life is your life. So do what you want. Your father is about 50, so he'll be able to work for another 20 years. And by this time, your youngest brother will grow up. If you don't want to do this, because I had this feeling that you don't really want to do anything related to chocolate and sweets. And sweets industry is a very complicated business. So why don't you set up your own business? My name is Alexander. I have a question for Igor and Boris. First of all, I wanted to thank you for your presentation. It reflected all the main elements of family business. You gave some statistics in your presentation that showed 99% of Japanese business owners that were family-run businesses. I think there's some commonality between Russian and Japanese people. But do you think we will reach these figures at some point? I don't think that family business has to have some special legal framework or enjoy tax benefits. I think all business can rest on the same legislation. And it should be as competitive as a public company, for example, or private company. All companies are in the same situation. So I wouldn't really focus on family business. Speaking about the percentage of family business as compared to other kinds of business, it's true that Japan had yakuza and their own clans. We had a transition period from socialism to capitalism in the 90s. So the status of family went down. We know that we have 50% of divorces. We have a lot of abortions. So when the society re-evaluate and understand the value of family and raise the status of family, then it will result in growing number of family businesses, because we should build a foundation for that. I can add that back in the 90s, it was very risky to do business. That's why they didn't want to involve their children, because people were afraid for the well-being of their sons and daughters. So even though the time has changed, but still we need a longer time in order to have a new mentality. Igor, what do you think? Speaking about Japan, I can't agree that we're similar to Japanese. I think our mentalities are very different. I remember writing an article about family business in Japan. They have very strong family connections in Japan. And sometimes family companies can hire some managers in Japan, and then they offer him to marry, for example, their daughter. And that's why it's very often that their managers just marry their daughters to stay with the family. And it's true that the ancient family company was in Japan. It was Kikkoman. They produced soy sauce. No, it's a different company. They were building temples. It was 1,000 years old. So yeah, it was there for 1,300 years, but then it went bankrupt. So there's nothing which is eternal. And in Finland, 90% of companies are micro companies with only 10 employees or less. Boris has just said that family companies shouldn't be different from any other company. As far as I remember, Dmitry said that the difference between family business and other companies are in the horizon, because family companies are built as a long-term project, and there's no purpose to sell this company. If you're not ready to sell your business, then it's not a business, it's just a hobby. And so it brings me to a conclusion. If the family business is not ready to be sold, then there's no need to provide standardization, unification. There's no need to describe all the details and subtleties. And then this might be a problem of family business, because then it means you can't expand it if you don't have to do all those things, if you don't have to sell it 7 or 8 years later. It can destroy your business. And actually, my question is for everyone. Are you ready to sell your business? Well, let's start with the last question. Are you ready to sell your business? Yes, of course. If we get a very good price, we can do this and we'll start something else. And Olga, and you? Yes. Are you ready? Guy, are you ready?
No, never.
Я хотел бы тоже ответить, поскольку...
I also would like to answer this question because I also own a business. It's very important for me to run my business. I started this business not only to make money, and I had different time. I lost money, I did very good, did very well, so it's important to create a special environment, protected environment for my family. And every member of my family should understand that there's all kinds of possibilities for them. Synergy is the most important thing, and the best thing is when grandfather is proud of his grandson, and the grandson is proud of his grandfather. So I would never think about selling my business, or if I do, only at some at the very last stage. It would be the last thing that I would think about. 90% of businessmen that classify themselves as family business owners in this country do not have any plans to hand over their business to the next generation. Can you imagine how big this gap is? Now, getting back to family. The family provides a backbone for family business. If we take a classical business, I doubt that any manager would be interested in your realization as a person, that would focus on the soul, whereas this is the most important thing for family business. So we heard this question from a young man. So the man, the father, hopes to have him in the business, but he says, I do installation works and he's happy. So family business is a trial. We asked our respondents if there's a hierarchy which is understood by everybody and accepted by everybody. That's a very important question. So when we have a right system of education, we'll recover the value of family. Our country has the biggest number of divorces. And some families can't stay together even for 1 year. So it means that we have lost something fundamental. And family business can cement family values and can teach next generations not only to maintain it, but also to grow it. I'd love to respond to this. I disagree with you partially. The family is a team. They can manage different kinds of business, and business can result in a very profitable transaction. If there's some investor that gives a very high price that they are ready to pay for your business, it's a great opportunity for you, because it would mean that the entire family team would get a lot of money. They'll have some reserves in terms of money, and then the team can set up this similar business in a different country or change their sphere of activity and start up something new. So it's not that it always indicates that it's really good, that the family business has really good value. I remember the story about a merchant that came to Russia, and the Tsar came to Moscow, and the merchants had to meet the Tsar. And when the Tsar asked how are you, the merchant would say, everything is fine, but my wife is sick. So in pre-revolutionary time, the merchants had certain criteria, and money was never the main criteria. The most important thing was to see if the society, if the community was thankful for what you do. And if the Creator gave you some opportunity to do something, then you should do it as best as you can, so that your children would never feel shame for what you've done. You should be proud of what you do. Okay, let's have one other last question, and we will stop. So, Tatarstan government wants to support farmers, and in Russia, they don't have such a program. So all the federal funds should be provided to build power lines and all the infrastructure, and give support to startups. So are there any prospects for family business in Russia, and family farms in particular? That's a good question, and it looks like nobody knows the answer. I think we should just get together. Some attempts were made to change the legislation, but the time didn't come at that time. So I think the most important thing is to consolidate our efforts. Would you like to add something? We had a plenary session about family business, in spite of all, and everybody showed a real interest to success of family business, and to the prospects that family businesses have. Of course, I can say that spiritual values are very important, and they can become the source. They can inspire us and improve us, and make us move on further. So it's very important to be proud for what you do. It's important to be willing to hand over your business and to maintain the traditions. So I wish you all kinds of success, and thank you very much for coming here. If you have any other questions, if you want to exchange some ideas,